So here we go. We're going to start off with mountain pose. So in this, here's what you want to keep in mind. Addressing from the feet on up, your feet, even though you're wearing shoes, take your toes, pick them up in your shoes, and then ground your toes into the floor. It almost feels like your toes are gripping into the floor. At the same time, feel the bottom of your heel and make sure that that is also grounded. So I always tell people, if you could envision your foot as a rectangle, all 4 points are grounded and rooted into the floor. From there, we're going to go up in through our pelvis, pubic bone aiming down, shoulder blades are down and back, and we're taking an inhale up, and we're exhaling all the way through. So even though the arms are moving, you're still keeping those shoulders pulled down and back. There you go. So you want to make sure the abdomen stays nice and tight, and that's pulling in from the rib cage. So the rib cage is very flush with the ribs. And so the first part of our section here is a sun salutation. Excellent. So now we have a forward bend. Our modification is always coming to the knees. For those who are a little bit more limber, they'll reach all the way down to the floor, but you're going to dress all the way through the spine and then bring yourself right back up. There you go, and then you round through that spine in both directions. And bring it up. Okay. So taking it sideways. So again, notice how her shoulders remain down and back. Her pelvis, when she bends forward, pushes her pubic bone aiming to the back of the room, but yet when she stands up, pushes her pubic bone aiming straight down to the floor. There we go. So now she's gone all the way down. So for those who are a little bit more limber, they can easily reach the floor. You'll go through the exact same movements, but with your fingertips towards the floor. There we go. All the way through. So you first look up, then you look down towards your legs, and then you work your way right back up, using your breath all the way through the movements. So it's an inhale on one part of the move and an exhale on the other. Perfect. So I'm going to change spots here so that I'm not in her way, and you can visually see everything that she's doing. Again, she's going to go all the way through. And this time she's going to step back into a plank. There we go. So at this point, the rib cage needs to be really tight so that, again, the abdominals and the ribs are flush, the pelvis is straight down, and the body weight is even between all 4 points that are on the floor. You can also bring your knees down for the modification. That enables the body weight to be less. The elbows stay tight to the body, so it's like a tricep push-up. So you want to feel like those elbows are going to rub the sides of your t-shirt as you go down. And then you press yourself up for upward facing dog. You can either go halfway up, which would be your modification, or you can pull all the way up and through, which would be for the more advanced. Shoulder blades are back and down. Notice how the hips come up off the floor and the weight is just up on the tops of the feet. And then pressing down to child's pose. So child's pose is like home base. This is the place that you go to whenever you're exhausted or you just feel like you can't hold it anymore. So at any given point in time, you give your students and your participants, you give them that power that at any time they can go into child's pose. And in that, your hips are evenly placed on both feet, your arms are fully extended out and forward, and your head is looking down. So now we are in all fours for a cat-cow. And you watch how she moves all the way through the spine here. And in that, her pelvis shifts down, and then her pubic bone will go out to allow the spine to go up and through as her head follows through. So you're allowing the full revolution of that entire spine. Toes tucked under, and now we have downward facing dog. So here we go. Think of it this way. From the very tip of your fingertips, it's a straight line that shoots through the arms and all the way to your pubic bone. Then from your pubic bone, it aims all the way down the legs towards your heel. The average person probably can't keep their heels on the floor. And for those who have a lot of inflexibilities, they're going to bend their knees more. And a lot of times I'll tell them to bend their knees so that they can actually manipulate their spine and push that pubic bone as high to the sky as they can, and then they slowly start to straighten their legs as much as they can without letting the pelvis change. So you really want to be pushing all the way back. And so if you felt like where your weight's coming from your hand, you're trying to keep little amount of weight on the base of your palm and more weight pushing from the fingertips so it shoots straight through the wrist and up through the arms. One leg goes up. Both hip bones are facing the floor at this point, okay? And again, now all 3 points of the body have the same amount of weight. Rib cage, once again, is nice and tight. And you can bend, and then you can intentionally open that hip up. But in that, once again, you're still pushing back from your fingertips, trying to keep the body straight as straight as it can be, even though it has a slight twist. And then you step forward for your lunge. So for the average participant, they'll probably want to place their knee on the floor, but as they get stronger, they can lift that knee off. Then you're pulling your body straight up from there. So you think about where the spine is, shoulder blades are back and down, reaching up. So the reaching up with the arms is going to be considered more of the advanced move. So for those participants who don't have that kind of strength, they'll want to keep their hands down at their knees, but for the others, reaching straight up and looking back. The key here, that front knee needs to be shooting straight out. So you don't want to see the knee fall out or fall in. You want it to go straight out and for it to remain right above the ankle. You add a twist from there. So that twist initiates from the bottom elbow. And your goal here is to stack your shoulder blades one on top of the other. So you're basically trying to create such a twist that the shoulder blades stack one on top of the other. As participants become stronger, they can lift off that back knee and hold themselves right there. Reaching up again, keeping that weight very balanced. Pulling yourself back to the lunge and back into a plank and downward facing dog. So again, sometimes, especially, remember, most participants who haven't engaged in yoga that much, they are going to forget where their mechanics should be. So these are parts that you want to continuously be repeating. Jumping forward, or you could be stepping forward, looking up again, looking back down, and then slowly rolling through the spine, going into chair pose. So at chair pose, the knees touch, you're pressing them nice and firmly together, and you're sitting in an imaginary chair. The key here is most people are going to want to pick their toes up. You want to push your toes down into the floor so that your body's nice and anchored. For the modification, you can bring your arms down. It's a lot easier, or bring them straight in front. So if you think of it this way, the arms completely down as your beginner, intermediate arms would go straight ahead, and more advanced arms would go up and come back to standing. So bringing it out here, notice how this foot is turned in slightly. That front foot, if you were to draw a line where that front foot goes, that front foot, a straight line would take you to the center of this back foot. The hips are turned slightly, and so she'll keep trying to hold them as centered as she can. Chest is nice and tall, and then she'll initiate her arms up and over for the more advanced. So the same thing goes for the lunge knee, the knee that's in front. That knee is going to want to fall out. You want to try to hold that knee in, and in doing so, you're going to have to grip all 5 toes into the floor. Then take it straight out. So this is called warrior. So you want to look at the 90-degree bend in that front knee, and then you're going to press it straight back, keeping the front foot exactly where it's at. And then bringing yourself up and over. So the weight is very balanced between both legs. Again, the spine is nice and long, and the arm feels like it's really extending over. So it's not just flopping over, it's really extending and reaching as far as it can go. And you can take that into a triangle pose. So now if you think about it, that back leg is straightened up and shoots the hips straight back. This back toe really hasn't changed much. For a more advanced version, you can reach that arm up and overhead. And bring it back once again. All 5 toes of the front foot are grounded into the floor, and the shoulder blades once again are down and back into the ground. Going back into downward facing dog. Jumping forward, pulling through the spine, and taking it up from there. Excellent. So, now we're bringing ourselves centered. Both hips are straight ahead. Your toes are aiming straight ahead, and once again, all 10 toes are grounded into the floor. As you bend forward, you're bending forward exactly from the hip. That's the joint. So you don't want to bend from the spine, but from the hip. So as you bend from the hip, it's going to feel easier to let your body weight go backwards. You're going to really want to center your feet. Again, abdominals are nice and tight for that. And then you add a twist. So in adding the twist, you want to keep both hip bones aiming straight back. It's going to feel easier if you actually tucked one hip bone under the other, and that's what you want to try to avoid. So both hip bones go back, yet the shoulders, you want to try to keep the shoulders stacked one on top of the other. That's your twist. There we go. Perfect.